Stella's Meza. Today I will teach you how to make pork chops, smothered pork chops, which is a southern favorite. Now, being that I live in Atlanta, which is in the south, this is one of the things that I had to learn how to make, especially with company coming over with my husband's family or any family from Kenya. So for this, you will need to do ahead of time. What I did was I marinated my pork chops. I marinated my pork chops. They've been marinating overnight, but you need at least an hour to let them marinate. Okay. So for this, you will need. I have 4 pork chops. I have 1½ cup all-purpose flour. I use 1½ tablespoon prepared mustard. Okay, just plain mustard, the kind you use in your hot dog. And I use 1 tablespoon salt. I use kosher salt when I cook. And then I use 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. I use all-purpose seasoning, 1 teaspoon. I used ½ teaspoon of paprika. I'm sorry, 1 teaspoon of paprika. And I use ½ teaspoon of ground black pepper. And I also have here a little bit of oil that I use to fry them or braise them on the heavy skillet. Now that's a special equipment. You'll need a cast iron heavy skillet. That way the meat is nice and browned all around and it doesn't burn. The good thing about this is the heat is spread evenly. That way your pork chops will not burn. Okay, so what I did is I mixed all the mustard, the salt, the garlic, the all-purpose seasoning, the paprika, and the black pepper, and then I put them in a bowl and I made a paste out of it. Okay, and then beforehand I had washed my pork chops, put them on a plate with a paper napkin on them so that they could absorb the papers could absorb the water from the pork chops. And then I went ahead and took another paper napkin and dabbed them just to get rid of all the moisture. That way the ingredients settle in when I marinate them. So I went ahead and made a paste out of this and put them in this bowl, and then I went ahead and rubbed it. You have to use your clean hands. You have to rub it on there. There's no other way, unfortunately. You can't use a pastry brush. The marinade will not get in there good. So you have to use your hands, and I rubbed it into the pork chops. And then once I made sure that all the sides were coated with a marinade, I went ahead and added the all-purpose flour. Made sure that all the pork chops were coated evenly all around with the all-purpose flour. So now it's been sitting in the fridge overnight. It's absorbed all that flavor, and I'm getting ready to put them on the cast iron skillet. Now over here I have my cast iron skillet that's been on medium heat, preheating. Now be very careful, because if you touch that, it has the handles are also made of cast iron. So I went ahead and wrapped it in a kitchen towel just so when I handle it, my fingers do not burn. Okay. So I'm going to take this over here and I am going to start cooking them. Now, over here to the side, I have a plate in which I put paper napkins just to absorb any excess fat. And you will also need this, a pair of tongs, cooking tongs. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil to my pan, just a little bit. I don't like, actually it's easier to control the oil coming out of a little spout like this. So I'm just going to coat the bottom of the cast iron skillet with the oil. Not too much. I don't like my food greasy. And then I'm going to spread it around so we get that cooking nice and even all around. Okay, so I'm going to start, and make sure you leave space. These are pretty wide, so I want to try not to crowd my skillet. So I'm going to put maybe 2 at a time. Now these are called smothered because at the end I'm going to show you how to make a sauce that's going to go over them. And that sauce is made out of the dredge, like whatever, after you cook the pork chops, whatever's left at the bottom of the pan, I call it dredge. And then we're going to use this. It's cooking cream, and I use this original. There's all kinds of flavors with cheese and everything, but I like this original. That way all you get is a taste of the food you're cooking. Okay? I'll show you how to do that in the end. So you basically just make sure they don't burn. Spread them, give them space to cook, make sure they don't burn. And then every now and then come back and check to make sure they're cooking well, and you want them brown. The objective is to get the edges and the bottom It's touching the pan, nice and brown, not burnt. Okay, so I'll do this. It's going to take a little bit of time, so I'll do this and I'll come back and show you what it should look like. And then we'll also come back and show you how to make the sauce. Okay, so stay around. Welcome back. Right before the break, I was searing the pork chops in the cast iron skillet that was on medium high, and I went ahead and cooked each. I kept putting 2 at a time, and I went ahead and cooked them for 20 minutes. Now these are pretty thin, like 1-inch thin pork chops. So if you have a thick piece, a thick cut of pork chops, you might need to to sear it for 20 to 25 minutes, but just make sure it does not burn. So I want to show you the end result, and this is what it should look like. That's the color you're looking for. See that? It's nice and seared on each side. See that? And just to make sure that your pork is cooked all the way through, please take a knife and cut. If you see any pink, it still needs to be seared some more. And it's very important that you cook, especially when you're cooking pork, you cook it all the way through. Alright, now we're at the next stage. I'm going to show you how to make the sauce for the pork chops. And I will not add any more of that cooking oil. I'm going to use butter this time. Okay? I did not clean the cast iron. I'm using the same skillet. And what we're going to do, we're going to add here a tablespoon to 2 of butter. I'm going to start with, I didn't turn the heat down, so it's actually a little bit lower than medium. Okay? I'm going to put the butter in there, that's a tablespoon. I'm going to melt it in there, and then I'm going to throw in the onions. Okay, and I went ahead and finely sliced 1 small onion. That's what I'm going to use. And I'm using, you notice I'm using a whisk, so I can, when I put the sauce in there, the cream in there, I can easily scrape the bottom of the cast iron. It smells so nice in here, y'all. I wish you were in here. And that's the beauty of this recipe, is you don't have to clean the cast iron in between cooking, the different stages of cooking. Now this meal can be eaten with the pork chops can be eaten with mashed potatoes, which is delicious. With the gravy, you put the pork chop right on the mashed potato. You put the gravy on there. It is so good. It can also be eaten with rice if you like. Okay, but in the South here they do it with mashed potatoes. You can also eat it for breakfast. Pork chop and eggs. That's a very good combination. Delicious. And some breakfast potatoes, which I will one day show you how to make. Very simple, economical, and very delicious. Now you want to brown these onions until they're translucent or just starting to lightly turn color. You see that? You want to zoom in and look at it. You don't want to have that crunch when you bite into them. Okay? And I'm kind of breaking them up with a whisk. And you can see, if you look at the bottom of the pan, that's one of the reasons I love this pan, is that nothing's sticking. Even all the bits and pieces of pork chops or the marinade that fell in here, it's all coming right off. Alright, now besides the onion and the butter, you will need the cooking cream that I mentioned earlier, which is this right here. Oh, 1 second. I'm trying to serve 2 masters at one time. Okay. So you will need this. The cooking cream, Philadelphia cooking cream, about a tablespoon or 2. And then I, just for that richness, add heavy whipping cream, just a little bit of it. Now it depends on how many pork chops you have and how much gravy you like. And that'll determine how much of the heavy cream you use. And if you like your gravy a little thicker, if it's not thick enough, feel free to add a tablespoon of all-purpose flour once you've added cream. Okay? So our onions are coming along pretty good. And we just want to make sure they're cooked. And what we're going to do after we made the sauce for this, and that's why it's called smothered. It's not just fried pork chops. It's called smothered because we're going to put the pork chops back in the pan for them to absorb and incorporate the flavor of the sauce, okay? And then we're going to serve them and have a taste, which is my favorite part, see how they turned out. Right now, what about ready to add the rest of the ingredients in here? Okay. Right, I'm going to take the cream at this point. Like I said, 2 tablespoons should do. And I'm just going to gently sit it in there. Okay, and then as you put it in, just go ahead and use your whisk to mix it in. And you might need some pepper if you like it a little spicy, or a little bit of kick, and salt. Now I put mine with no salt because I like to taste the flavors of this by itself. But if you want to add salt, you can add like a teaspoon or 2. And if you want to add pepper, half a teaspoon. That way it's not too, doesn't have too much kick to it. You still taste the flavors of the pork chop as opposed to just the heat. Okay. So I'm going to add the heavy cream in there. Beautiful, look at that. That adds so much richness to the sauce. And give it a good stir. If you like to change the color a little, you can add a little bit of paprika, like half a teaspoon. That'll give it a nice, rich, deep color and flavor of paprika, that deep, woody flavor. Okay, I'm going to seat those pork chops back in the mix. That onion does not want to incorporate, so we'll leave it alone. And I am going to set them right in there again. And they'll also take in the color, the sauce will take in the color and the flavor of the pork chops. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to let it sit and simmer for around 8 to 10 minutes. But we're going to turn the sides. Once one side is done, you turn the next side so that both sides get the sauce. And then when we come back, I'll show you what the finished item looks like, okay? So come back. Welcome back. Right before the break, I was making the sauce for pork chops. Now I went ahead and added cooking cream. I just used 1 tablespoon of butter in the cast iron pan. And then I added some onions in there. And then we also added some heavy whipped cream, okay? So I like my pork chops not like when it's smothered pork chops. I don't like them runny, so I like them smothered, like covered up. And if you take a look down here, you'll see exactly what I mean. See, you can see the sauce beautifully coated the pork chops, and those are the caramelized onions over them. Okay, so it's not, there's no sauce running off the side of the pork chops, but you can see they are covered in something. And I'm sorry, I had to start early and I took a bite. I couldn't wait, so because it smells so good. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to cut into it and show you what it should look like. Like if you look in here, oh, it's so good. It's there's no like bright pink, there's no blood residue in there, and you can see the caramelized onions. And I am going to insert right here, okay? Oh, that's good. The flavor is wonderfully coated, the pork chop, and the onions have that light little crunch to it. Okay, they're not raw, but there's an explosion of flavor in your mouth as you take a bite, and that is going to be so good. With I'm going to eat this with some eggs, pork chop and eggs, because it's morning here. Okay, so join me next time as I take your taste buds on another culinary safari, and we'll try something new. I like to mix it up a little. Some African dishes, some dishes from the South, which is where I live, stuff that I've learned. So join me again, and we'll have a good time. Remember to think outside the box and eat outside the box. And thanks for joining me this time. Kwaheri.